And welcome back. In the last video, we cleaned the tops of our pistons and a little bit of the mating surface for the head gaskets. But continuing on to the next steps, I'd like to get the oil pump and timing hardware off of here and prep for removing the cam. And one of the issues we're going to run into, and it seems to be a common pain point, is getting that oil pump out of there. Because the issue being that the sump tube is bolted on the corner for the inlet for the oil pump here. And from what I can understand from watching other videos like from Reignited and Scott Rods, and now Reignited made a really good comment about these oil pumps, is that on non-trucks the sump isn't bolted further down inside the pan to the bottom of the block. So I guess in a non-truck application you can just take your bolts out and you have enough kind of free play here that you can kind of twist up on the pump to get to that bolt and get it out. But in the truck applications, and I saw this on the diagrams as well, that sump is bolted a little ways down onto the bottom of the block, which requires kind of dropping the oil pan to get that sump bolt out to remove the sump completely. Now, we haven't had a catastrophic failure or anything like that on this engine, so what I would like to try to do is figure out a way to get that sump unbolted from the oil pump and get that oil pump out without having to remove the entire pan. Because looking at the process of how to remove the oil pan from this, it is a right pain in the rear to get accomplished. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to take the 4 bolts out of that oil pump and see if there's enough slack in it, or if I can get enough movement out of it to at least get the bolt out of that pickup tube. If I can do that, great. If not, I'll try what Scott Rods did on his 5.7 and at least loosen up the oil pan bolts enough, or maybe even take the oil pan bolts out completely and just kind of drop the oil pan enough to get to that pickup tube bolt, or that sump tube bolt, however you want to call it. Because again, trying to get that pan out of there looks like it's going to be a right pain in the rear to accomplish. I'm going to crawl underneath here in a little bit and see if maybe there might be enough room to wiggle that pan out without having to do as drastic measures as what the book is calling for in order to accomplish it. But I'm going to poke at things here a little bit. I'll more than likely get these 4 bolts taken out of this oil pump housing and just kind of see what we've got to play with here. And I'll bring you back when I get that done. And welcome back. We've got our bolts removed. In case you're curious, they're 4 13mm bolts, 2 on each side. And like we already kind of figured, because they have this pickup tube bolted further in underneath, you know, you can see that pump there wiggle a little bit, but there's no slack in that to be able to pick that up enough to be able to get that bolt out of that pickup tube, at least not without damaging something. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pause you and bring you back and show you what we're dealing with underneath. It looks like it may be possible to drop this oil pan without all the shenanigans the book was showing. The book was showing doing a lot of things to this vehicle that this 2500 just it doesn't have. And it looks like there's enough space that you might be able to actually drop this oil pan and get it to clear the sump enough to get the sump unbolted and just kind of remove it. Now, we did purchase a new oil pan gasket because it comes as one piece. You get an oil pan gasket and the windage tray comes in one piece, and I'll show you that if we can get the old one off. But if we can at least get the pan drop down enough to get that bolt off. And even if the oil pan doesn't clear the sump, if we can at least get it dropped enough to get access into where that sump bolts, maybe we can get to the secondary bolt from up top and get it unbolted that way, and then be able to drop the pan. So that's going to be what we're going to try, and I'll show you underneath kind of I think what we're dealing with to get this oil pan out of here. But I'm going to get you paused and I'm going to bring you back. Got you back underneath, and remember what you're looking at is a 2500. So you know, a Ram 1500 is probably going to vary, maybe a little bit, maybe quite a bit from what you're seeing here. But you can see up in there, you know, this is part of the frame. This isn't coming out, and I'm really hoping it's a case where you don't have to, you know, jack up the engine a little bit to get enough clearance to drop the oil pan. I'm just not sure, because you can see there's very little space between the bottom of the oil pan and this part of the frame here. So like I said, we're gonna try it, and you know, at a minimum, if all we can do is just drop the pan enough to get the bolt off of the oil pump, we'll go with that. I'd really much rather try to get this whole pan out of here and replace that gasket, but you know, if I can't do it, I can't do it. You know, I do have an engine hoist, but trying to pick this engine up would, you know, I don't want to say to be too involved, but it may take a bit. But at a minimum, you can see we got our transmission lines here that get held on by a clamp that's just pressed on until it looks like the end of a stud. But it looks like we could release that clamp right here and just pull these lines out of the way. On the opposite side here, you've just got a wiring loom which is pushed down on top again, which what is 2 studs. And it looks like we'll have to take this inspection brace or inspection bracket / brace of this bottom piece of this transmission off here, which is 2 bolts here, bolt here, 2 in the back, another 2 here, and another 2 here. So it looks like 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts to remove this kind of inspection plate piece you see here, and that'll allow us to get to the rear oil pan bolts. But before we start removing a bunch of hardware, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go out and get an oil catch pan, and we're going to go ahead and drain the oil out of this. Now, you may have seen this in some of the earlier shots and wondered what this is. This is a Fumoto drain valve. About a year ago, we took the standard oil plug out and replaced it with this valve. And what it is that you can remove this lock piece here. I believe that you push down on this tab and you swing it out towards the back of the vehicle, and that'll drain the oil. And then when you're done, you just swing the valve back. It'll spring loaded. It'll lock back in place, and you can put your little protective clip back in. So it was just a valve that we added to it, which I've seen a lot of people use on a lot of vehicles for many years, and it just makes oil change a bit quicker because you're not constantly removing and have to install an oil drain plug. But tying this into last video, I made a comment that there's probably going to be water in this oil from when we remove the cylinder heads. So I'm going to try to get you set up onto a tripod so that you can see the oil drain out of here, and hopefully we can see that event where we see a little bit of water come out of here first, then followed by all the oil, and you can kind of see what I was talking about. And I'm going to get you paused and get you set up, gonna get some other tools underneath here, and I'll bring it back when we're ready. And welcome back. Got you on a mini tripod at this point. Got an oil pan position below you. Let's see if we can we'll see. We'll find out soon enough whether or not we got an oil pan in the right spot. And it looks like that's about center of the frame. Let's see if I can tone down this light a little bit so it doesn't swamp you out as bad. There we go. Well, let me hit this valve over here and we'll see what we get. Oop. There we go. Not sure if you can see that. And hopefully my hand didn't block the shot a little bit, but you can kind of see that oil. It's got a little bit of a tinge to it. I don't want to say a little bit of a watery tinge to it. Just going to move our oil pan up here a little bit. But it wasn't too bad. I don't think it got into the shot, unfortunately. But there was a little bit of water there at the very beginning that kind of came out and hit my hand. It wasn't as bad as I thought that it would be, which is a good thing. But you can kind of see the way that Fumoto valve works. It actually does a pretty good job of draining pretty quickly. And like I said, it's just a nice, convenient way of being able to drain your oil and not have to constantly remove and install an oil drain plug. And we're going to go ahead and let this run, and then we'll bring you back when this is done, and we'll start taking some pieces out of here and see if we can get this drain pan out. And talk to you back. Bye. And welcome back. Just a little bit of a status update. I want to show you that we've got our inspection plate taken off. Which does give you access to the rear oil pan bolts. We took loose, let me get some light up in there. We took loose our bracket that was holding our two transmission lines and took that off the stud that it was on. And on this side here, if you remember, there were two studs that were holding the wiring harness in place. And all the oil pan bolts are the exact same size. So there's not any that are longer than the others, with the exception of on the driver's side, positions 3 and 5 had studs for that wiring loom, and position 3 on this side from the corner. So from the front corner, 1, 2, and 3, it would have sat right there at the tip of the light. It was where that bracket was at for those transmission lines. And those studs, to show them to you, it's all the same size stud, no matter where you're at here. Hopefully you can see that okay. And the light doesn't, there you go, that might be better. So just to show you what one of those studs look like. They're all the same. And again, for this particular model, on the driver's side, it was positions 3 and 5 on the oil pan. From the front, so from the front corner, spot 3 and 5 going from front to back had the studs for the wiring loom. On the other side, it had that same type of stud on position 3 for the loom, or for the bracket that hold the transmission lines. I wanted to show you something on this bracket. To get that to come out, you see that little tab on the end of that? You'll see on that side it's kind of narrow, but on that side it's a little bit bigger. I was able to get a pocket screwdriver in there to depress that tab from the inside of that square slot, and that would allow that to swing forward. To get this off of that
stud that it was on, and to show you, it was a little bit of a pain to do it, because it's on the stud like this, and you'll notice that slot that I accessed was kind of on the other side. So what you kind of have to do, if you can get into this square side, this other side of this with a can, great. If not, you can still get your pocket screwdriver, kind of pull the top out a little bit, wedge it in at an angle, and just depress this or pull it away, and then pull it away from the top where it would latch, and you can kind of get that out. Like I said, it's a bit problematic, but you can get it. Just kind of keep working at it. But to get this off of that stud, because it's right up against the base of the oil pan, just get a flat blade screwdriver between the top of this and the edge of the oil pan, and kind of pry downward a little bit, and this will eventually pop off of that stud, because it's just a couple of plastic fingers that you can see right in there that grab a hold of those threads. So we got that out, and those are all, in case you're curious on the size of the oil pan bolts, these are all 10 millimeter. They're not in very tight, and even when you go to put it back in, hopefully that audio wasn't muffled, and sometimes the audio will muffle depending on how I have to hold the GoPro. I apologize. But like I said, they're all 10 millimeter. They're not in very tight. You can easily break them all loose with a 1/4-inch ratchet. Matter of fact, they suggest that when you put it in, there's no need to go, insane amounts of torque on these, because they can break pretty easily. Basically snug them up, which is about as far as you need to take it. Let the oil pan gasket do its job. For this transmission inspection plate that we removed, and do be careful, because if you remove cylinder heads, there will be some coolant waiting for you. When you take this down, that will pour off the inside lips of this. Just when I thought I was done with coolant, I take the transmission inspection plate off of it, and a bunch more pours on the ground. But these are all the same size bolt for that inspection plate, and there, like I said earlier, there's 2, 4, 6, 8 of these bolts holding that plate in place, and they are all, get some light so I can see, they're all 15 millimeter. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to cut the camera here. I'm going to get a rubber mallet. I'm going to kind of hit on the sides of this oil pan just to break the seal. And then once we have the seal broken, we'll see about what we need to do to get that sump tube off of that oil pump. And then we'll take it a step further and see if we can actually get this oil pan out of here without having to jack the motor up. Again, I think what's going to cause us an issue is trying to gain access to the bolt where that sump is bolted further in on the bottom side of the block. But we shall see. We'll bring you back when we can get this thing cracked loose. Talk to you later. And welcome back. After a couple of hits with a rubber mallet on either side of the oil pan, you can see we've gotten it to break loose from its slumber. Now, having the pan drop like this, and you'll notice I have the corner of the pan resting on the bracket for the transmission lines that would normally be bolted to that inspection plate. I just got it sitting there holding it. Now, I'm going to grab a light here and show you our front cover. Myself situated here so I can get a better shot on this. So there you go. You can now see our pickup tube. You can now see our bolt that's thoroughly exposed. So at least loosening the oil pan bolts and dropping it does get you access in to that bolt to be able to remove the oil pump. So we could get the pickup tube out of there at this point, and we can carry forward. The only issue is that, as we feared, you can't drop the oil pan per se, because the pickup tube is in your way and there's not enough room, as you can see there, between, you can see the bottom of the oil pan is hitting this cross member piece right here, and there's not enough room between it and the bottom of the engine to get the clear the clear the sump tube. So that sump tube would has to get unbolted from the oil pump. It also has to be unbolted from its resting, from its other anchor point underneath the engine. And I think if we could get that bolt out, then allow that sump tube to drop, it would give us what we need to get the oil pan completely out. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll bring it back underneath the vehicle here. Pardon me, I have to spin myself around. Yeah, let's get some light on the subject. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna shift the oil pan around, back you up a little bit, and you can see our little friend, that bolt right there. Hold on, let me see if I can twist this pan where I had it. Give you a little bit better view. Oh, there we go. Hopefully you can see that bolt in there now. Right there, you can see that bolt right on that hanger, which is kind of right at the corner. I'll see if I can get my shop light in there to point at it. But right there, that's where that pickup tube is bolted at. And because that pickup tube is in our way, we can't finish dropping the oil pan enough to actually get it out of here, because we're hitting up against it while trying to pull the pan out. So breaking that oil tube, pickup tube loose, may give us enough room that we need to drop the oil pan out. Or we would have to do what I don't want to do, which is, take the transmission lines loose, loosen up the, I don't think I have to do anything but the motor mounts, but basically put like a engine support hoist on it, or an engine hoist on it, and kind of pick up on the engine a little bit in order to get the clearance necessary to finish dropping the oil pan. Matter of fact, I think the instructions have you picking up the engine enough to get the oil pan enough of a way to break that bolt loose and get that pickup tube out. Now I'm going to see if I can get a socket or something on that, break that bolt loose, and see if breaking that pickup tube loose from there and the oil pump gets us enough room to get this oil pan out of here without raising the motor. I really hope that it does, because like I said, I do have a new oil pan gasket. I'd rather put it on. If I can't do that, I may just chance it and just reuse the existing gasket. And I know the instructions say that once you break that seal loose, they really want you to replace it. But if I can't get that oil pan out of here, then obviously I can't put the gasket on. Now, if we can get that oil pan out by breaking that bolt loose, and it looks like it is doable, it looks like you've got just enough room in there that you can possibly get a wrench or a ratchet on there to get that nut off. If that's the case, then putting this back together is still going to be a little bit of a pain, because it's going to mean basically you got to put the windage tray up here first, get that situated, and then bolt the pickup tube in place, and finally the oil pan. Now, it may not be too bad to deal with, because there are 4 spots on this, 2 of which are back here, that you have to put a little RTV sealant on the new gasket just to account for any differences. And you might see a little bit of that RTV here in the corner, one shot here in the corner, one shot on the other end, and then on the front timing cover. Now that may be enough goop to help hold the new windage tray in place, or it may not. Again, that seal, the current seal, as you can see, doesn't look bad at all. It's only got 36,000 miles on it. You know, I'm not crazy about reusing the existing one, but I may just do that. If I break that bolt loose in there and see that it's not going to give us the free play we need to finish getting the oil pan out of here, I may go ahead and do that. Because trying to hoist this engine up is going to be problematic, to say the least. Let's see. Yeah, we got a little bit of play in our transmission lines, but there ain't much to be. Yeah, looks like you may have to crack the transmission lines loose to get the slack needed, and there's some cautionary notes about once you take those clips loose that retain those transmission lines, then they want you replacing the clips, because according to the book, those clips lose their strength considerably once they've been undone. I don't know. I'm sure they had a good reason for bolting down that pickup tube the way they did, but if you ask me, it's a horrendous pain in the rear to require having to drop the oil pan and jack the engine up to get the oil pan off, or at least at a minimum drop the oil pan just to get to that oil pump. I'm not sure why they designed it that way, but I guess they had a reason for wanting to put that extra mounting bolt in there. Anyway, I'll stop titrating. I'm going to look at things a little bit further, and when we get ready to take those front timing components and oil pump off, I'll bring you back. Thank you much. Bye. And welcome back. Just wanted to see about getting this oil pump out of here first. See if it would help free up a little bit of room for us. And just to show you that when you prop the oil pan up there in the back and kind of rest it on that transmission line mount, again, you can see the gap it creates. That gives you enough room to get a 13 millimeter 3/8 in there. You kind of have to, you know, loosen up your 4 mounting bolts first, and that'll allow it to tweak a little bit. And then once you have that tweak in there, you can then come in here. Like I said, it takes a little bit to get it in there, but you can get it in there, and that's a 13 millimeter bolt. Just crack it loose. Now, I don't know about yours, but I can tell you on this one, it was in there with a fair bit of torque. And I'm going to get my hand in the shot. I apologize. I'm just backing that bolt out. But yeah, that was... somebody had their Wheaties this morning when they decided they want to put that one in. I'm not sure if they had a torque value in mind or if they just, yeah, wailed on it until they was happy with it. But as you can see, that's our bolt, and we should now be able to take our downspout out. And I've been looking at that bolt in the back of where that pickup tube is at and seeing if there's a way to get, you know, a socket or something in there to try to break that loose, and then see if we can get the oil pan itself out of here. Because what happens is that you'll notice that you can clear, the oil pan will clear this part of the pickup tube. But the problem is there's baffles and stuff in the very back of the oil pan where that sump sits. So because the sump is sitting in the lowest part of the oil pan where that big bulge is at, where you would normally undo the oil bolt, the oil pan draining bolt. And because of that, you just can't pull the pan straight back. And as you can see, because of the clearances here, there's not enough distance between, you know, this member and the bottom of the motor to allow that oil pan just to kind of drop down enough to clear that pickup tube. So it looks like, and again, it appears that if I can take that back bolt loose, once this pickup tube is disengaged from this oil pump, then we should be able to kind of pull the oil pan and the sump off in one go, because this will then drop down into the pan and it should clear the windage tray to be able to get this out of here. So that's what I'm going to do with it at this point. I'm going to get this pickup tube disengaged from the bottom of this oil pump. And then I'm going to go ahead and take that oil pump off. So I'll bring you back when that's done. You're not missing anything. Again, it's just the 4 bolts on 2 on either side. Again, this 13 millimeter bolt, which is attaching that pickup tube. I'm going to take this crank pulley bolt back out, and then we should be able to get that pump out of there. But I'll bring you back when we get that out. And I'm also going to fidget with that bolt back there a bit more and see if I can get that rear bolt out and indeed get this entire oil pan out of here. Again, hopefully without having to raise the engine up some. But I'll bring you back on the next piece. Talk to you in a bit. And welcome back. As you can see, we have our oil pump off. And just to show you, when you get that bottom bolt undone, it came out of the bottom of the oil pump fairly easily. But there is enough free play in here. You can see I can push that down with my fingers. What I was able to do is just kind of reach in between here where the oil pan was at, grab that pickup tube, and you'll see push and pull it down enough to be able to then slide that oil pump off in one assembly. And there it is right there. And I'm still kind of looking at this and deciding if it's going to be worth it to try to figure out if I can get that rear bolt out of that pickup sump. And then go ahead and replace the gasket, the oil pan gasket / windage tray. Part of me wants to do it because I want to be able to document if you absolutely had to do it and you didn't have a way of raising the engine up, could it be done in some way, shape, or form? If we can get that bolt out, I'm just going through my head right now what the order of reassembly is, because there are, like I was saying earlier, there are 4 spots on this windage tray oil pan gasket that has to be RTV'd in. And by the looks of how they have the pickup tube bolted in, the windage tray would have to go on first. Then you'd have to bolt the pickup tube back in place. And you got 2 spots in the rear of the windage tray that have to be RTV'd in just as a precaution to help seal it, where it meets up with the back of the, I think of the rear main seal cover. And then you got to get it. And then what you would have to do then is that once you have the pickup tube bolted back in, put your RTV sealant on the back of the windage tray, kind of press that in place, run around here to the front, go ahead and put your oil pump on your crankshaft. Don't bolt in the 4 bolts, just leave it there loose where it'll rock back and forth a little bit and give you some free play. You know, replace your O-ring, but go ahead and put your pickup tube back in and secure it and get it fully bolted in place. Then once you had that, you could go to the rear of the oil pan and start putting your bolts in, and then stop before you get to your front timing cover bolts. And that way, when you're ready to put your front back together, you can squirt your RTV there, that corner, and that corner where the new gasket would need it. And then finally put your front timing cover back on, and then tighten up your front oil pan bolts. Yeah, it's going to be quite the Jenga puzzle. I'm gonna poke at this a little bit and see if it's possible to even get access to that back bolt in that tight space, and even see how tight it is and see if we can even break it free. Yeah, let me poke at that a bit, and I'll bring you back. Talk to you later. And welcome back. Okay, so I found a way that you can get a good perch on that bolt. But you kind of have to work in one of these situations where you work a little bit by feel. Trying to get at it from this area, you just don't have the clearance. Even with a small ratchet, you're going to hit the oil pan, you're going to hit the pickup tube. What I found best to do is reach in on the opposite side of the oil pan. And this is where you kind of have to pick yourself up. But you see, if I reach in on the other side of the oil pan, I got oodles of free space. You can see right there where I can get purchase on that bolt, because it's nice and free and open on this side. I'm going to take the ratchet out and see if I can get a light in there to better show you. There we go. You can see the pickup tube there. Let me see if I can find something to stick this light to. And then reach in there and show you this. There we go. So you can see if you reach in this way on the opposite side, you've got plenty of room to get access to that bolt, even with a 3/8 ratchet, and be able to get that off. Now, getting everything back on in this angle is tricky, because you kind of have to pick yourself up off the ground to get to it. So if you got something to, you know, kind of rest your head on, it makes it a bit easier. But I'm going to proceed forward with dropping this bolt and then dropping this pickup tube and see if it'll do what I think it'll do and allow us the clearance to get the oil pan out. You know, if it doesn't, so be it. I'll put the pickup tube back on and, you know, recycle the old oil pan gasket, and we'll go from there. But I'll bring you back with what we can find. And you can, again, let me back up a little bit so you can see that. So you can see I've got that oil pan dropped as low as it'll go, because the front of the pan is resting on that that cross member in the front of the motor, so it won't come down any lower than it is. But you can see you've got a nice big gap, which is how you're able to reach in from the other side with a ratchet and get access to that mounting bolt. But I'm going to continue with this and I'll bring you back. Thank you. Okay, as you can see, we got our mounting bolt out. And pan dropped down quite a bit more. You can see our mounting stud there now that pickup tube mounts to, which is right here. So what I'm going to do to get the front of the tube to clear the oil pan, because you'll notice it's still stuck right on the front of the engine where it would come up and meet with the oil pump, is I'm just going to grab the pickup tube here and kind of push the oil pan forward and see if I can get it to fall through. And it's hard to do when I have to hold the camera. Hold on a second. There we go. Give it a little bit of a turn, let it fall into the pan, and let's see. There we go. We have our prize. Woo! Presto. One 6.4 liter oil pan removed. I'll tell you what, I'll get all this out of here. So I'll show you what I was doing is, so since it was loose, again, push the oil pan towards the front of the truck to unpinch it, and just took the pickup tube and twisted it this way and let it fall completely into the pan. And then once that was done, that gave it the clearance that it needed to then finish dropping the rest of the way. And this space in here with that pickup tube out of the way and not catching it up on the edges here was then enough space here to get the oil pan to drop out. So excuse me. So with that being said, needless to say, the reverse of this is going to hurt. But at least we were successful. I wanted to show if it could be done without having to raise the engine up. And at least in this case on a 2500 with a 6.4, it is. It's just going to be a bit of a Jenga type setup to get everything to kind of go back in place. And when we get to that point, I'll definitely bring you back and we'll film it. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to take the bolt for that pickup tube, that mounting bolt. and just thread it back onto that stud, just so that we have it and we don't lose it. Okay, well, with that being said, I'm going to get this oil pan and this pickup tube out of here, and I'm going to bring you back as we take the rest of the components off the front of the engine, and I'll bring you back in a bit. And welcome back. As you can see, we've got our prizes this evening. We've got our oil pump out. The oil pan is out. The oil pickup tube is out. We've got our lower timing sprocket, our upper cam phaser, also part of our timing, our tensioner, our guide, chain. You can all see it's all been removed. I didn't show you the removal of the tensioner that sits on this side, or the guide sits on this side, because I'll show you the install of all that. But in case you're curious, it's 10mm bolts, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. It's the same bolt, same length for all 4. For the upper bolt for the cam phaser into the camshaft, that's an 18mm. Where I did use an electric impact wrench to break that loose, just like I did the crank pulley. It makes the job phenomenally easier. That was actually one of the goals of this project, is to try to do this all with just common hand tools. With the exception of this has been the only electric tool that we have used on this job, and that's what we're going to continue to strive for, is just to show that if you had to do this on your own, and you're in your own garage or out in your own driveway, and all you had was common hand tools, that yeah, you may have to borrow or purchase at least one electric impact to get those bolts off that you need, but 99% of the rest of this so far is just common hand tools. This is the old phaser to cam bolt. We're going to replace this, so we'll have a new bolt. Much like the crank pulley, when we put that on, it will be a new bolt. But just to show you here, there's the old phaser, the old lower timing sprocket, the chain, the old tensioner, and the old guide. That's the pickup tube for the oil you saw before. We do have new O-rings on order, so we'll replace that before we reinstall it. We'll have it. We're going to put a new oil pump in. So all the timing, all the oiling components will be new when they go in. And if you remember earlier in the video when we were draining the oil pan, and I probably didn't get a shot of it, but I wanted to show you the water that could potentially accumulate on the bottom of it when you're cracking those heads loose. And if you look at this, and hopefully I can get some light in on this to show it to you. And let's do this. Let's hold the GoPro like this, a little bit of light. And you'll see that. You can see the water in that oil, and it kind of has an orange reddish color. That's the actual coolant. And so you can see that some water did get in the bottom of our oil pan, and the reason why it didn't drain out is if you look at where the drain plug is at, you can see that divot down in there. This would actually sit lower than what even if we didn't have the Fumoto valve in there and we had a standard drain plug, it still wouldn't drain out. So you would be left with a little bit of water in the bottom of your oil pan. Again, I can't say whether that would hurt anything or not, but it would be a small amount. But you can see, like we were talking about earlier, where that was the reason why that was one of the last things I wanted to do, was drain the oil after we got done playing with anything that would possibly get coolant into those oil passages. So I just want to show you that. So as you've seen, we got multiple prizes done this evening. We made a lot of progress. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the video here, and then we will bring you back. And then what we'll do here is that we'll get our lifters taken out of the block, and then we'll start getting that. We'll get that cam thrust plate out of there, and then we'll work on getting the camshaft out. Once those pieces are out, it becomes a reinstall effort at that point. We'll start getting the new cam and everything else in. I am waiting on some O-rings to come in, one for the pickup tube that we just removed tonight, and one for the oil dipstick tube, but it's not something that's gonna hold us up, at least from doing what we can until those parts show up. One surprise that we're gonna have for this evening: when we put the oil pump back in, I originally ordered a standard what was called for part for a 6.4 liter Hemi 2016 2500 oil pump. Reignited just released a video about his theory on how to fix a Hemi tick. And it was his theory is related to how the MDS lifters get their oil supply when the engine is running at idle in prolonged periods of time. And I'll link his video in the description because I'm not going to do it justice if I try to explain it. So his theory is that in order to fix it, you need a oil pump that will give you more velocity of oil, or I'm sorry, more volume of oil at idle than a normal stock standard pump would. And there aren't really any on the aftermarket out there for Hemi that'll do it. There is one, and I talked about it very early on when we were going over all the parts for this build, is that it wasn't a increase in volume in their pump. It was just an increase in pressure, which is not what Reignited was referring to. And it's the reason why I didn't purchase the pump, because I didn't necessarily want more pressure in this build. I want more volume. So he did research and found out that a Hellcat oil pump apparently has more volume, I believe more volume / pressure of oil at idle than a standard normal Hemi oil pump would. And I don't know if it'll bolt up. I don't know if it'll be compatible. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I took the chance because we do own a Hellcat here. I own a 2019 Hellcat, as you've probably seen in previous videos. So I ordered the oil pump for a 2019 Hellcat again because it was based on what I had. And when it comes in, I'm going to see if it will bolt and work up and work with the pickup tube and the whole 9 yards. If it does, great. I will incorporate it in this build. Obviously, we will video it and we will do some oil pressure checks and things of that nature once we get it in there. Because again, with this being built and now we're going past the realm of stock components, having more oil, in my opinion, is not a bad thing. And I fully credit Reignited for releasing his video and his theory on this. And again, I will have his video linked in the description below. And I did leave a comment in his video that, thanks for releasing it. It's perfect timing. We're right in the middle of this build, and we will definitely be looking to get that pump again. It's already been ordered. Once it comes in, if it looks like it'll bolt up, I'd be more than happy to video it and get those links posted. And if it helps others, great. I did see some other comments, some other commenters on his video that claimed they've already done that, where they've taken a Hellcat oil pump and used it on a standard non-Hellcat Hemi motor. So, like I said, we're going to try it. If it works, great. If not, then we have the one that we purchased for this, the original one we purchased for this engine when we started this project. But that's enough rambling for now. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down and call this a video. And like I said, we'll bring you back. And then we'll look at getting that cam thrust plate out of there and get those lifters out, pull the cam, and probably we'll make that a video in and of itself, albeit it will be a short one. And then when we start the reassembly, we'll continue the video. But I thank you for watching this long rambling video. I think we made good progress, and I'll chat you later. Thank you much.